Good evening and welcome to the Capital OTB, the annual Capital OTB Breeders' Cup Seminar. I'm Seth Merrow, sitting in with our friend Tom Amello. We're going to take a look at the Breeders' Cup action from Friday and Saturday. Two really great cards. Looking forward to it. Hopefully you are as well. Tom, good evening.
Good evening, Seth. It's great to be back in the teletheater. It's going to be a crazy 2 days. Full fields, of course. Shippers galore, and favorites we can love or hate.
Very good. Tom, I'm going to, if the guys in the control room can do it, I'm going to send to a commercial quickly. So just head it to a commercial, and we'll come right back right after this with more Breeders' Cup Seminar. Sure.
You know the time is now. What you waiting for? The time is now. Hear us knocking at the door. The time is now. Do you want to give them more when the time is now? You've seen the rest now. You want the best, but the time is now.
The 2025 Global Symposium on Racing. It's the premier networking event of the year. Connect with the who's who of racing. Collaborate face-to-face with key decision makers. Be a part of the international conversation. Discover the latest technology and innovation. Join us December 8th through 10th. Register at racingsymposium.com.
Welcome back. Yes, it is the annual Capital OTB Breeders' Cup Seminar. Seth Merrow and Tom Amello. And Tom, why don't we just start out before we get into the races themselves, a little bit of an overview. My overview thought, we were talking before we went on the air, I think it's two very competitive days. I had trouble finding any kind of a single in any of the races. I think you can point to 4 or 5 at least and have equal confidence. What are your overall thoughts on the 2 days?
My overall thoughts are, on big race days with big fields, I'm a believer that your contention and your winners, if you got 14 horses, it's the first 7. I don't care what anybody says. It's awful tough unless you have a reason, and there are some who can have a reason to like a horse who in the betting numbers is 13th, 12th, and so on. So what I'm looking for all the time is a horse who gets some love from the line maker. So maybe he'll be 8-1, 9-1, 7-1, and no love from the public. And then I'm looking for reasons to not like the logicals. And that will be a horse I want to make a win bet on. So I'm looking to betting horses who are 7-1 or more, not 40-1, not 35-1. And I think the other thing, I tend, in the Breeders' Cup especially, to look at the Euros on turf, and as long as it's in California, I'm going to take a look at the sharp California speed dirt horses. The East Coast horses not only have to deal with the new competition, but the ship, and some do, some don't, and we'll talk about it later on. Sovereignty looked great, and he spikes a fever. Was that from the ship? Was that from who knows what? But we'll talk about that later. So if I had 2 opinions to share, one would be I'm looking at the Euros because I watch all their races, and I honestly think the Euros have put more speed into their horses. When you watch Euro races, used to be a galumphing field, and the quality horse runs the field over. Now that quality horse is closer to mid-pack and still running the field over. So I think that sets them up better for American racing and the Breeders' Cup.
And there would be plenty of turf action to talk about over the 2 days. As you alluded to, Sovereignty scratched. If folks haven't heard, did spike the fever, and they waited about 24 hours. You could see it coming. I mean, you're not going to spike a fever on Tuesday and come back. And then, so
if they treated him, he'd have shown up with a positive.
so Sovereignty out. Also, Japanese runner on Saturday, Fille Blanche, is out as well. So there are, as we tape this, a couple of the early scratches. Let me just hit you with some OTB news. Don't forget on Friday, the bounty bet, $1,400 up for grabs. You can take a shot at the bounty bet by playing with your Capital OTB bet account, late pick 5 at Del Mar. So again, mark that on your calendar for Friday. Saturday, King of the Hill contest. If you come down to the Clubhouse Racebook, a little extra fun. We'll have a big crowd down here. It's always great on a big day like that with a little buzz in the building. But the King of the Hill contest will be in action on Saturday. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. And we'll also have the bankroll. Bankroll team has been selected, but Steve Bick will be playing $1,500 split over Friday and Saturday. Last year, he knocked it out of the park. 20 people were on the bankroll team, and they split up over $5,500. My math says everybody walked away with a nice chunk of change last year. So we're rooting for Steve and the team again this year, the Capital OTB Breeders' Cup bankroll. All right, Tom, you ready to jump in? Friday action?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll kick things off with the 6th race at Del Mar. Will be the first Breeders' Cup race on Friday. It's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. They're going to go 5 furlongs on the grass. Tom, how did you see the turf sprint?
I saw it 8-1-9. Now we're going to have a prohibitive favorite here in the 9 True Love. 8 Havana Anna finished right behind that favorite in her last race, the Chevrolet Park Group 1, and it was a strong effort. This one didn't have any trouble, but did have a tough, slightly subtler, tougher trip than the winner True Love. She was second favorite there. She handles any type of ground, and the 4-back effort indicates that this one has some stalking ability. This is one of the O'Brien family, and if you like Aiden, I think you got to like the family because I think it runs in the blood. So I'm going to give Havana Anna a shot here. She's 6-1 on the morning line. My second choice is the 1 Brussels. This is an Aiden O'Brien runner, and he talked about Brussels as being a tough luck horse who's gradually getting quicker. She's been second by a neck, second by 3/4, and second by a length in 3 of her last 4. She made a huge run in the Middle Park Stakes, another Group 1 at Newmarket. And if she's getting quicker and she's a big strappy horse, maybe this one, Brussels, from the 1 hole at 8-1 might do some damage. And the outside horse, the 9 True Love, this is the class sprinter of the field. This is your morning line favorite at 7-2. Post 14 might be a knock, but I want to say this now about the outside posts. All my life, I get beat by horses I throw out from outside posts. And when I tried to do a little study to inform myself on that, I realized that not that many horses get to run out of post 14 and post 13. And so they don't ever have good stats. And they don't tell us the type of horses that run out of those posts. Well, if it's 0 for 10 and all of them were grade 1 favorites and they were 0 for 10, I'd say that's a compelling start. But if they're 0 for 10 and all of them have been 0 for 22 maidens or something like that, or horses who are less accomplished, I'm going to say that the stat has no meaning to me. So we're talking about the top horse or a top horse from a difficult post under or a top jockey. And if it's possible to make a good trip, the top jockey is going to do it. In this case, I'm standing against True Love for one reason and one reason only. 2 back, she won. She was second in the Phoenix. She had no real trouble there, but the chart line, the European chart line, says she was slightly lame post-race. Now, Seth and I were kind of talking about this before we came on air. What does slightly lame mean? I have no clue. And that race, the Group 1 Phoenix, was against males. She came back at Newmarket in another Group 1 at Chevrolet Park against the females, and she won by 3/4. Now, she's here. I'm sure she's fine. But the post and the slightly lame, I'm going to take a shot at her with both Havana Anna and the one Brussels. Seth?
All right, I have a whole different take in here. 6, 12, 10, and 2. I put Intricate Spirit on top of Miguel Clement trainee, who's done a fine job since taking over for his father after his untimely passing, Christophe Clement. But Miguel doing very well with the stable. This one owned by our friends at West Point and Company, comes in having won the Futurity in the most recent effort. And that was off a Saratoga debut that was pretty good looking. Then they got ambitious, tried for the big purse down at Kentucky Downs and just missed. Back to New York and wins the stakes race. I think this one is in good form. Obviously, Joel Rosario, a good turf sprint jockey on board, 12-1 on the morning line. I'll take Intricate Spirit. Now, there are, I believe, 5 fillies in here. You used a couple. I'm going to use a couple as well. I will note, if you go back to 2021, this race was run at Del Mar and was won by a filly. So I'm going to put Lenny Lou and Cy-Fair in the second and third spots. Post positions aren't necessarily ideal, but again, they have a little run down the backstretch to sort things out. Both of these are very similar in that they come in off of stakes wins against the males. Lenny Lou against the males in the Hollywood Beach down at Gulfstream, and Cy-Fair against the males in the Algonquin up at Woodbine. So I think they both come in having proven that they can get it done against the boys. I think they're both very talented. George Weaver doing very good this year with his 2-year-olds. He has Cy-Fair, who I think is going to take a lot of action, and Irad Ortiz is on board there. So I have those two. And then in the fourth spot, I have Military Code. You used Euros, and I had Military Code on top at first. And then I switched because it's my own bias. And I will explain in a minute. I may be up against it with that bias. But these horses coming out of straightaway wins over in Europe, I'm always curious as to how it's going to translate to a tight turn like they have at Del Mar. That said, Euros have won this race the last 3 years. So, I may knock myself in the head, but I think Military Code is the one I like. If I was going to tell people to have a little fun, it might be box up the Euros in an exacta if you get the decent prices, because they are potent. But I thought others were a little more interesting. I'm 6, 12, 10, and 2.
I couldn't think of a better way for two handicappers such as we are to help the audience by giving them 7 horses in a 13-horse field, and none of them are the same.
And again, reiterating, I think that's the 2 days. I think right. It's very tough, couple of days. All right, 7th race on Friday is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Grade 1 event. They will travel a mile and a 16th. I'll kick things off 7, 2, 1, and 5. I'm going to use Explorer on top. Bob Baffert, trainee. Obviously, being a Baffert trainee, kind of, going to appreciate the home cooking. Comes in most recently from Santa Anita, winning the Oak Leaf. You have the Oak Leaf, the Frazette, the Alcibiades as key races that kind of play into this every year. So we'll use the Oak Leaf runner coming out of a nice win at Santa Anita. But the debut effort at Del Mar showed that there is an affinity for this course. It was a win back in August with an 88 buyer. August, 2-year-old filly, an 88 buyer. That's significant. So it's proven over the track, proven talent, Baffert runner. We'll put that one on top. Bottle of Rouge is another Baffert runner coming out of a stakes victory most recently at Del Mar. So similar scenarios to the top pick. And then Iron Orchard. This horse is a really intriguing 2-year-old New York bred. Started the career winning up at Saratoga. And if you're not familiar with that race, it was a very funny situation. If you look, this horse was in a auction restricted race. Now, you look up above, this horse recently attracted $2.5 million at auction. That was after the Frizette. But this horse was bought earlier this year at OBS for $500,000. So jumps into an auction restricted race for $50,000 tags. How? Well, they were trying to fill fields early, and so they had an exception. If you were a New York bred, you could get in any fashion. So the $500,000 purchase gets into the $50,000 auction restricted race and runs away and hides from the group. So it was a nice start to the career. Then they got ambitious, went right into a stakes race, state bred stakes race, but won that. And then went in the open company Frizette. So 3 for 3. Iron Orchard, I'm really intrigued to see the performance on Friday. But for me, in the juvenile filly, 7-2, 1 and 5.
Well, I have it 1-7-2. I decided I'm going to take
I don't blame you.
the one Iron Orchard. And you just described the public workout. The maiden win was a public workout because the conditions, and boy, oh boy, anybody who read those conditions knew this horse was going to jog. I mean, 80 cents to the dollar. Everyone knew, but I didn't know. Anyhow, it's a wonderful effort. Well, then she comes back and she wires a good field, as you said, and then she takes the Frizette from off the pace, and she was hooked late, but wasn't going to matter. And what I like is this horse showed that at least she doesn't have to have the lead, and East Coast roots are speed, speed, speed. I don't think the one post is going to hurt her. I think she'll stalk the Logicals, which are the two horses that we both have, the 7 Explorer and the 2 Bottle of Rouge. You adequately explained they're both talented. They both like Del Mar. Explorer has a win at the distance, plus 2 good efforts over the track. And so you would argue that Iron Orchard is up against it, and that's why we're getting 6-1. And I would not be surprised if the 2 Bafferts were battling each other in the lane.
I left out I had at the bottom of the mix Tommy Joe. Tommy Joe could easily win this. I was just a little taken aback by the Alcibiades, and that was the first try, which the horse won, but by DQ. So I didn't quite know what to make of that. But with a 2-turn race under the belt now, Tommy Joe can better my rating, certainly. But
this Tommy Joe's last effort reminds me, or is mindful of Fierceness, who threw a clunker before the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, comes back at 15-1 and becomes the good Fierceness over. If you're right, if the good Tommy Joe shows up, we're all going to look foolish.
8th race on Friday at Del Mar, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf, a mile on the grass. Grade 1 event. They will vie for $1 million. Tom, how did you see the juvenile fillies turf?
I didn't fight the favorite here. We talked about the outside post. I think Precise is as good as her reputation and her record says. It's post 13. She's got Christophe Sommillon, her regular rider. She's never been back in terms of speed figures, never been back, if you will, on time form ratings. She's dead forward, and she should be good enough to make a trip. I sat with a good friend of mine this afternoon, and we watched Precise's last race, and it was impressive. I'm not going to say breathtaking. That's my friend Nick Kling's word, but it was impressive. And so my top pick in here is the 13 Precise. My second choice is the 1 Ultimate Love. Now, this is a horse I would argue it looks a lot like Iron Orchard. Although Iron Orchard has won a stake, Iron Orchard has run every race in New York. This is Mike Trumbetta's January foal, who is undefeated. And in her 3 races, she was an adult woman against children in a grade school. So no one really knows how good this one is. Mike Trumbetta is as sneaky good a trainer as I know, and I don't think he would bring her out here unless he thought she could run. And this one is another with tactical speed, breaking from post 1, and her price at 8-1 is intriguing to me. You're betting on the come, as they say. You're betting on how good she might be. And My third horse is the 9, and the 9 is Time to Dream. Now, Time to Dream is the Fletcher horse coming out of the Jessamine, the Grade 2 Jessamine. And I watched that race again today, and that was a nice effort. This horse was left at the gate, rear throughout, was actually in some tight quarters, and followed the winner, Imagination, the lady, and really made a good effort. This one is offered at 5-1. If you get the cleaner trip, this horse is likely. And so I think I have 3 likely horses here, and no real short price. Oh, no, excuse me. Precise is the most likely winner. Excuse me.
I'm there too, 13, 5, 1, and 2. But you mentioned, when you make that decision, boy, that outside post position, I just can't pull it. Then they win. So I couldn't step away from this one. I do think up against it with the post position going a mile. So Precise, though, just so talented, from talented connections. I'm going to use that one on top, but I do have trepidation on the post position. Final Accord in the second spot for me. The Mark Casse runner comes in undefeated, a nice maiden victory against the boys up in Canada, and then came down and won a stakes race in New York. So I think this horse comes in very good form, and I like the 2 sprints to a stretch out in the third spot. Jose Ortiz on board. Ultimate Love in the third. How is this a Live Oak Plantation homebred? It doesn't have soup in the name. I don't get it. But regardless, this one comes in undefeated. Mike Trombetta coming out of a stakes win at Laurel at 1 mile and a 16th. So I think legitimate. Queen of Hawaii, another Euro that I think is interesting. Your Time to Dream, I took a really close look at. This is, again, another one of the very intriguing races on the day. But I have 13, 5, 1, and 2 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf. All right, on Friday in the 9th race, it's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Grade 1 event for, as the name would indicate, 2-year-olds going 1 mile and a 16th. And I have it 8, 7, 1, and 2. I think my top 2 are pretty similar. I just tilted slightly towards Ted Nafi because I think I'm a little bit of a homer, and that this horse started out with 2 wins up at Saratoga, including the Grade 1 Hopeful. I had to tilt in that direction, and the Hopeful win was just spectacular, but then followed it up in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, continuing to be spectacular. So off of that, I went with Ted Nafi. John Velasquez on board. I'm curious to see what he does this weekend, because he is coming off that that phenomenal Keeneland meet where he won, I think, 7 stakes, one at $70, one at $50, a couple at $20, but 7 stakes overall. So Velasquez just has been phenomenal over the past month or so, really all year, but the Keeneland meet was crazy. He'll be on board Ted Nafi. Flavian Prat, the talented Flavian Prat, on board Brant. He's been on board for the first 2 starts and 2 wins, including the Del Mar Futurity. And again, it's a Baffert runner kind of coming out of the home base. And then Intrepido, I made my first visit, to LA overall, but I made my first visit to Santa Anita back on that first weekend in October, and got to the track just in time to see the American Pharoah run as the 3rd race on the day. And Intrepido made a really nice late run down the stretch to pass a couple of Baffert runners. And I thought off of that effort, I'll put Intrepido in the mix as well. So for me, 8, 7, 1, and 2.
Johnny Velasquez was channeling Johnny Velasquez with it. I have it 1, 8, 7. We have the same 3. I opted to take Intrepido. They supplemented him for $100,000. They want to be here. They're all well meant, don't get me wrong, but the connections came up with the shekels to do that. I thought his American Pharoah was terrific. He had a subtle trip in that race. He actually, had to angle out and move up from between before proving that he could wear down the leaders. I thought that was a good race in a race that's going to be pretty much front end. anytime you got a Baffert in the race,
Yeah.
they're going to be sent. I put Ted Nafi second. I mean, he's done nothing wrong. He's even money. Seth, we often tell folks they don't need us to point out the even money favorite. And the question is, if he can sit the trip, and it's likely he can sit the trip, he's fast, certainly fast enough, if not the fastest horse in the field. If he duplicates that, then it may be all over. But I'm taking Entrepido to give him some fits here or to try and catch him. And I think, Brant had some trouble early on, veered into the rail. This is a fast horse. He's going to go to the front. And so I can see Brant setting almost all the pace. Nafi sitting just off him. And the question, if he's good enough, he has dead aim, goes by, and Entrepido may have to try and run them both down.
Yeah,
That's how I see that.
I'm going to be interested to see what the odds settle on this 7 and 8, Brant and Ted Nafi, because on the morning line, 4 to 5 and 5 to 2. Interested to see where the betting public goes there.
Yeah.
All right, we will wrap up Breeders' Cup action in race number 10. Breeders' Cup action on Friday. Race number 10, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Tom, how'd you see it?
I have a 2-14-3. I took a shot here with the 2 Street Beast, and I'm standing against all the stats that say that every horse who runs at Kentucky Downs who comes to the Breeders' Cup falls on their face. If Street Beast does that, so be it. But Street Beast is 10 to 1, and you go back and watch his win in the Juvenile Mile. I mean, that's up the hills, down the dales, to grandmother's house, and you think the race is over, but they got another furlong up the hill. He crushed this group, crushed it. Ben Holbrook is no slouch, and I'm going to say that he quickened impressively, ran away from a decent field when bet to do so, and I think he's live in here at a fair price. The 14. Is favored. I have to find him on my PPs here.
He's deep in there.
There is Gestalt. Now the interesting thing for me, O'Brien says this is a big, progressing horse who's had some bad luck. Okay, well the interesting thing to me is his bad luck has him nearing the winner's circle all the time. So he's certainly no horse to beat. He's got 3 winning efforts in 3 Group 1s. But you have to say 3 seconds give you pause in the win hole. It is post 14. He's going to be a short price. He's 9 to 5 on the line. And I suppose you could say the same thing for Precise. He's sitting under Soumillon as well. If he gets a good trip, he'll be formidable in the lane. And so if he reels in my horse, if he runs, I won't be surprised. If my horse beats him by a neck, he'll be Gestalt. And then my third horse is the 3. I'm stepping out here with Outfielder. When you have a heavy favorite and there's a good chance he's going to run in the money, you want to look. If you're going to use them in your exotics, you got to have horses that are going to make the bet worth playing. I think Outfielder has got a really interesting past performance because Wesley Ward thought enough of this horse to bring him to France in the Group 1, and he runs 4th to Gestalt. Wise Approach, who lost the neck to Charles Darwin at Ascot, and Venetian Sun. If, Gestad's in the race, well, if Gestad is in the race at 9 to 5, Outfielder deserves to be in the race at 10 to 1. So I have it 187.
I'm 287.
I'm sorry, 287.
Yeah, I'm reiterating.
No, wait a minute. Excuse me, folks, my dyslexic self kicked in. 2:14.3.
2:14.3. Okay.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yeah.
2:14.3.
Yeah.
But I wanted to reiterate the 2 because at 10-1, I have the 2 on top as well. I'm
Yeah.
2-12, 3 and 9.
Geniuses.
Street Boss on top. Luan Machado the last week or so seemed to be riding very well. So that to me is kind of a plus. Comes out of that Kentucky Downs race, yes, but boy, that was a nice performance. 2 for 3, gets a cozy little post position. I'll take the shot there. Second spot, I'll go with Botus, but I'm concerned about the post position. But it's a Miguel Clement trainee that is 2 for 2. Nice maiden breaker up at Saratoga, then went down and won the Pilgrim down in New York. But the 12 post position scares me. That said, that's one of the reasons I went against Gastad. That probably is the horse to beat. But boy, 14. So again, that one may beat me, and I may kick myself that I said, oh, I'm scared of the post there, but I'm using the 12. 12, though, with only a couple of starts and undefeated, maybe there's still some upside potential. So I'll throw that one in. Third spot, I too like outfielder for Wesley Ward off the win last time on the return to the United States. I believe they scratched him out of a stake at Keeneland last week for this spot. So that's notable as well. Argos is interesting. I could point to another couple, though. Again, it continues to be just a day that kicks off a couple of days of very, very competitive racing. But in the juvenile turf for me, 2, 12, 3, and 9. All right, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we'll shift our attention to Saturday. We've wrapped up the Friday action, but stay tuned. The Capital OTB Breeders' Cup Seminar continues.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
You know the time is now. What you waiting for? The time is now. Hear us knocking at the door. The time is now. Do you want to give them more when the time is now? You've seen the best now. You want the best when the time is now.
The 2025 Global Symposium on Racing. It's the premier networking event of the year. Connect with the who's who of racing. Collaborate face-to-face with key decision makers. Be a part of the international conversation. Discover the latest technology and innovation. Join us December 8th through 10th. Register at racingsymposium.com.
You are watching the annual Capital OTB Breeders' Cup Seminar. Seth Merrow, Tom Amello, taking a look at all the Breeders' Cup action on a couple of days that just really, really are shaping up to be what they're supposed to be, the highlight of the year. And Tom, just before we get underway on Saturday, the news earlier this week that Sovereignty scratched. Your thoughts as to how that affects the Classic? Because to me, it was really shaping up to be a classic for the ages, and it changes that a little bit because I really wanted to see what Sovereignty was going to do in this situation against the older horses. To me, he's clearly the head of the 3-year-old class, and so taking him out takes a little something away, but I think it's still a very good race.
Well, the first thought that came to my mind as a former English teacher was Steinbeck, who stole an Irish quote, and that is that the best laid plans of mice, men, Godolphin, and Bill Mott sometimes go awry. And now there are people going, ha, 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 you skipped the Preakness, huh? And there's all sorts of nauseous kind of reaction to this. Bottom line is that in all situations, we want connections to do what's best for the horse. And Mott was as clear could be. If we can treat the temperature and make it work, he'll run. But if we can't, and it was probably doubtful that they could,
Yeah.
but he was candid. So what does it do? It throws off the hype, but it gives journalism a chance. And he's been working like a beast, looking like a beast. I'm impressed in his physical presence. It gives Mindframe, who's everybody's question mark horse, a chance. It gives Antiquarian a further chance. We'll see if Chad Brown's Rabbit will help Sierra Leone. So I don't think the dynamics of the race have changed. And fierceness. Fierceness was breaking from post one. He was the third choice. He's breaking from post one. He's the favorite. Thank you, David Aragona, right? And that's really, I think that's really prescient on David's part.
Yeah.
And it's delightful that he was courageous enough to make a change like that. So you might argue that the hype had us set up and we're somewhat deflated, but it's still an intriguing race,
Very
a good
much.
betting race. And I didn't even mention the horse I'm picking.
So it gives us a little something to look forward to. All right, let's kick into it. Breeders' Cup action on Saturday kicks off in race number 4 with the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. These are the ladies traveling 7 furlongs. Tom, how
Yeah.
did you see the Filly and Mare Sprint?
I have this 4-8-6. You know, I'm gonna deify my former partner Nick Kling, and he always used to say, trust in Mandela. Richard Mandela, Hall of Fame trainer. He doesn't fool around. I'm picking the 4, Tamara. This is a horse who obviously has had significant physical issues, but when she makes it to the races, she delivers. And I think she's got the perfect running style for this field. She's 5-1 on the line. Oh, wait a minute. She's 7-2. Excuse me. She's 7-2. She gets Mike Smith. She ran a new top in her last race, and I think she's sitting on another one. The works are stupendous, if you will, and I'm taking her. The 8 is Hope Road. Now, this is a horse for the course, winner at the distance. She handled Scylla at Saratoga in the Ballerina in her last. And Scylla's a good horse. I think she's been unlucky. She's coming back. She's coming back in the distaff. So I'm not so sure 7 furlongs is actually her best distance. But Scylla's a really good horse. And I really like the record over the track, and it's a Baffert, so she's going to be forwardly placed. And the last is the 6, Sweet Azteca, and I'm standing against this speedster primarily because she's never won a 7 furlongs. She's had a couple of really sharp works, but she missed the work. She missed the work earlier on, and seems to have gotten over that. But anything that snaps up to put a blemish on your hopes, I think is something to take into consideration. She's fast. She's got 7 wins and 9 starts, but none at 7. So 4-8-6 for me.
I had the same concerns, but I couldn't get past Sweet Azteca. I have it 6, 9, and 8. I originally had Fille Blanc, the Japanese Invader, the 5-horse, just underneath. That one scratched, however. So again, I'm always had the 6 on top, but I had 6, 9, and 8. Sweet Azteca, as you mentioned, she has never tried 7, but she's done 6.5 a bunch of times. And so I think we're in the same ballpark. I considered that, but hadn't done the distance. But as I say, I think we're close enough. 2 for 2 at Del Mar, including a stakes win in the latest effort. There's a string of triple-digit buyers underneath in the PPs. I thought there was a break early in September, but the workouts since then seem to be pretty consistent and certainly okay. 59-4 coming into this race most recently, and also gets Juan Hernandez on board. I was on the radio this morning with Steve Bick, and I mentioned I think a lot of East Coast people, when I first got in the game, you looked out the West Coast and it was like who's who in the jockey colony there. But they would bounce around the country and pick up stakes races as well. We all knew those guys, when McCarron was out there, and then Mike Smith, who's still riding, was out there when he moved to the West Coast. And, there was just, as they say, a who's who out there. It was hard to break into that colony. They were solid, but we knew the names. Now you don't know so much. And Juan Hernandez doesn't really pop around with big stakes mounts as much as those other guys did back in the day. So I think on the East Coast, maybe people aren't quite as familiar, but he's coming off a Santa Anita meet where he had the meet title. And if I read one of the articles right, that was his 9th meet title out at Santa Anita. So again, he's a guy who knows how to ride. He's been on this horse for the past couple of starts, couple of wins. So I'll go with Sweet Aztec on top. Second spot, I'm going with Richie, Bob Baffert trainee. Again, you go underneath a little bit. There's some triple-digit buyers. I think the cutback to the 7 is very intriguing today for the Baffert runner, who offers a little bit of value. And then Hope Road, the aforementioned Hope Road, another Baffert runner coming out of a nice stakes win up at Saratoga in the Ballerina, and I think also a player in here. The first 3, Zeitlos, Splendora, Vava, all had check marks and notes for me that could be interesting. I wouldn't argue anybody off of those horses. I think they're all interesting. But again, it's a day of competitive races in the Philly Mayor Sprint. I'm 6, 9, and 8.
I said earlier that I was leaning towards European horses. My numbers here are 3, 1, and 11. I took the 3 Arizona Blaze, and 3 of her last 4 races are Group 1s. Her last race, she beat her entry mate, Bucanero Fuerte. 2 back, she was thoroughly beaten by Asfura in a grade 1. And there's no excuse. She just flat out didn't run. 3 back, she pressed the pace and ran on well. But most interesting to me, 3 races back, she carried 131 pounds. 2 races back, as the favorite, she carried 139 pounds. Last race, 131. Today, Saturday, she's carrying 124. I mean, I think that's a significant weight shift for her. And, weight is generally more important to trainers than it is to handicappers. But if you're a performance sheet player, whatever, weight and saving ground can equal 1 or 2 points, and that may be the difference. So I'm taking Arizona Blaze here. She's going to be 5-1 on the line. She's fast. If she handles the firm ground with the less weight, then I think she's going to be formidable here. My second choice is the 1, and the 1 is, as I turn the pages, Motorius. So I think it's probably the most likely winner in here. Motorius. This is a legit favorite. This is a horse for the course, horse for the distance, 7-year-old, fresh, working every 7 days. Okay. She's worked 15 furlongs in 14 days. I like that. I like to see steady work, and I like to see the furlongs almost adding up to the days, because it indicates fitness. And this is a solid horse, and clearly the horse to beat for me. And then I have the 11, who's the horse I mentioned earlier, Bucanero Fuerte, who was 3rd to mate Arizona Blaze. You know the rules, Seth. You like one, you got to like the other.
And in this 5th, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, I'm 5, 8, 2, and 1. You mentioned Motorius most likely. When I put that one at the bottom of my mix, so I'm not sure I'm feeling most likely winner on that one, but it's certainly one I couldn't leave out. Bring the band home, though. I mentioned it earlier. I may be a little bit of a homer, and this one had a couple of really nice wins up at Saratoga for Mark Casse. the Harvey Pack and the Troy, then goes up to Woodbine and disappoints as the favorite in a stake up there. But I'm going back to those Saratoga races. And if we get back to those efforts, that 12-1 morning line to me looks just crazy attractive. Egg Bullet in the second spot. This is a girl facing the boys, but she has done it before, including at Saratoga in the Jaipur. Won there with a 101 buyer figure. Was in this race last year and ran a close-up near-miss third. So I think that makes her very dangerous. Reef Runner coming out of a string of wins. Gulfstream, Del Mar, Santa Anita. So again, has some, I should mention, the Del Mar win two back wound up getting disqualified, but came under the wire first in the last three. And that disqualification was right here at Del Mar. So it's shown some ability over the track, and then Motorious underneath in the mix for me. So in the fifth, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, I'm 5, 8, 2, and 1. And that'll move us on to the sixth race on Saturday. It is the Breeders' Cup Sprint Grade 1 event, 3/4 of a mile. I'll kick it off here, 7, 10, 12, and 1 for me. I'm going to use imagination. I think a lot of people are going to feel like, and I said earlier, I don't know whether there are any singles on the day. If there are, it may be, and a lot of people will feel like Ben Tornado. And I have no argument that Ben Tornado is, as you say earlier, the one to beat in here. But imagination to me looks very interesting for Bob Baffert, coming out of a win in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. So comes in good form, has the ability to toss a triple-digit buyer, gets the aforementioned Juan Hernandez. I'm going to take a little swing in here with imagination. Ben Tornado, though, on any tickets I'm using, Ben Tornado will be right in the mix. Comes in with that 108 buyer last time at Churchill, and Irad Ortiz on board that day, back on board again today, I think is very, very tough, obviously. And then I'm going to go out to number 12, Straight No Chaser, last year's winner of this race, comes in off an effort in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, same prep race as last year. Last year won that prep. This year, though, ran an okay third. I'll take another pop there that this horse can run well. I'm not sure, I don't have the horse on top, obviously, but I think in the mix is eligible. And then Copian down at the bottom, the filly, I think, is going to be very intriguing in here and has the ability to get it done as well. For me, in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, 7, 10, 12, and 1. Tom?
I have 11, 7, 10. I said before, I'm picking a horse in this race who most people will probably throw out. This is Mulligan, and I'm taking Mulligan for several reasons. Seth, we've talked over the years, and in the sprint, it was handicapper James Quinn who coined the phrase power sprinter. And he defined a power sprinter as a horse who can be on or up close to the lead in 108 and change, and then win or be up close at 7 furlongs or a mile. He called that the power sprinter. So since I learned that from him, I've always scanned the PPs for the Breeders' Cup Sprint for horses who can be close at 108 and change. And Mulligan has always fit that bill. The interesting thing for me, he's got 4 races. He's 0 for 4. 2 of those races, Bookham Dano was there, and nobody was beating Bookham Dano on those Saratoga speed tracks at either distance, and he was just better. Okay. Now we're back on the West Coast. He loses twice to Bookham Dano, and he catches 2 wet tracks. So I'm going to say there'll be no wet tracks. There'll be no Bookham Dano. There'll be a ton of speed in front of him. He's fast enough to be up close to that speed without being buried. And if the speed comes back, Mulligan may surprise. He's 12 to 1. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm betting Mulligan. He's had 14 furlongs of work in 14 days through October 17th. I don't know if he's worked since. I didn't print those PPs, but Mulligan is my play of the day. And so he is going to play, like I said, he might dust these, but just flat out bust. Okay, my second choice in here is the 7, and the 7 is imagination. And you said, you gave it all the right reasons for this horse being in contention. He's an excellent breaker. He's got speed, and I think he's legit in here. And if you look, he was length and a 3/4 off 108 in the Malibu. Now, that's not on the lead, but that's close enough. And he's had 9 furlongs of work in 8 days, which is what Baffert does. My third choice in here is the 10. Where's the 10? And that is Bentornorto, who, I wouldn't argue with anybody who says he's the most likely winner on the card today, but he's flat out fast. He's okay at Del Mar. He loves the distance, and he's won his last. He's been first or second at 108 and change. So if he puts up a 108, then I think Mulligan will be close, and it's going to be 108 and change that wins this race.
And again, another competitive race on the card. 7th race on Saturday, the Breeders' Cup Distaff Grade 1 event, mile and an eighth of the trip. Tom, how did you see the Distaff?
8-2-4. I'm not fighting Seismic Beauty. She's Baffert. She's all speed. On buyer figures, if you look at this, the 110 and the 104, and I'm not necessarily a big buyer guy, but buyer coined the phrase double fig. The last 2 figures are faster than anything anybody else in the field has run on his buyer scale. Baffert, as we said before, he knows one way. So you got a 2-time winner on the track, a distance winner, formidable in here at 9-5. My second choice is the 2. Now I have to find her PP. Who is the 2? And that's the Argentine Sarawak Rim. I'm taking a shot here. There's enough pedigree and enough proof that this one can run long on dirt. And, I watched that last race. It was constant fractions, 24, 40, 48, 111, 136. That race she ran last time was near constant velocity. So this one has some good cruising speed, and there's no reason to think she might not get the opportunity to run, and she's 20-1. And this is a situation where I think the favorite is legit, so I'm looking for a horse who might run at a price underneath. And the 4 horse is my third choice in here, and the 4 is Scylla. This was interesting. Nitrogen's nitrogen, and nitrogen's really not done anything wrong, but I'm not sure. I'm a turf horse. I'm a dirt horse. What am I? I'm a talented horse. Scylla put in a work the other day that I watched that I thought was just outstanding. She looked terrific, and I really liked her spinster. So, this one has been 7 furlong, 6 furlong, 7 furlong, 7 furlong. Mott stretches her out, and bing, he points her to here. Who am I to argue with Bill Mott, right? So I picked Scylla in here, and she's going to be a fair price. She's 15-1. I mean, she's a full to Tacitus. He could handle distance and a couple of others, right? Isn't this one at a close hatches?
Yeah.
So 7 furlongs, nice.
Yeah.
But I think this is a cagey move by Mott, and the work. I encourage you, if you can, to find it on the internet. Find the work. Scylla put up?
Yeah, 46 and change. Nice little bullet. In the distaff, I'm 8, 1, 4, and 12. I'm going to put Seismic Beauty on top as well, as you say. Just not going to fight a horse who's put together a couple of nice numbers over the past 2 starts. I will say this whole division this year, there are nice horses in here, but I don't think there's any standouts. And with the Torpedo Anna getting retired, and even she was, a little bit inconsistent this year. So I don't think there's any standouts, but off the 2 triple-digit buyers, and I use the buyers, and so those just kind of stand out to me. One of those was right here at Del Mar, so I couldn't get past that one. All of that said, I debated about using nitrogen because I've been on her. People have heard me talk about it. I don't have to harp anymore, but the race up at Woodbine last year where 41-1 she gets nipped, and then I jump on her in the Breeders' Cup as well, and her 48-1. She runs through. So I was chasing her right from the beginning of the career. I've liked her, and now she's proven on both surfaces, including the win in the Alabama. Love to see her run well, and I think that is very, very possible in and amongst this group. And I also use Scylla, who's a very, very talented runner in this division for Bill Mott. Darth Vader, I probably would have moved up except for the outside post position. Again, going to be up against it a little bit in here with that post position on the outside of the 2 turns. But for me, in the distaff, 8, 1, 4, and 12. We'll take a look now. Race number 8 on Saturday, Breeders' Cup Turf, Grade 1 event, 1.5 miles on the grass, as the name would suggest. I have it 1, 4, 8, and 9. I'm not going to try to beat Rebels Romance, who came back from overseas and got it done in the Turf Classic, was the winner of this race last year. I think is legit, again, in the current form. So Rebels Romance on top. But redistricting, I will say, for Chad Brown, if David Aragona is right, at 15-1, I mean, sign me up to play around with this one. Was, just behind Rebels Romance last year, so last time. So why not in that Turf Classic back on September 27th? So Rebels Romance, redistricting, and then Mini Hawk coming in off a near miss in the Arc de Triomphe. I don't know if this year's version of the Arc was super strong, but it was a good second place finish from a filly, and that Aidan O'Brien says, let's go on and try. You can go either way with that. I think horses coming out of the Arc are often kind of afterthoughts. I think they're aiming for that race. So you can take that. But again, it is Aidan O'Brien, a very talented runner, hasn't missed an exact in 7 starts. So I have her in the mix as well. For me, in the Breeders' Cup Turf, 1, 4, 8, and 9. Tom?
I had it 8, 2, 3. I listened to an interview that O'Brien gave in which he said that the owners always had the Breeders' Cup.
Okay.
And so that can be the owners want to go, I don't, but I listen to the owners. Well, we don't know what. She set a really good trip in the Arc and then exploded late. And that was on soft ground. She ran a winning race. I will tell you, that was one of the situations where I decided I didn't want the favorite in that day. And I counted up to a couple of horses who were shorter odds on the line and longer odds now. And I bet both of them, and I got lucky to get the winner. So now it was a winning race. It was an impressive effort. O'Brien says she's tactical. She's better on fast ground. And they were always intended to this race, the turf, not the filly and mare turf. So I'm going to take Mini Hawk as one of the few favorites that I'm going to put on top here. I put Goliath.
I'm surprised she's a favorite, to be honest. In this field, comes out of the second in the Arc, but boy, as an 8-5 favorite.
It'll be interesting because it's a test of what the public actually knows or appreciates with respect to the Arc and the Euros, right?
Yeah.
Goliath, I think Goliath's just a wonderful horse. My question mark for him is that he's not run his best races outside of Germany. Okay, so here we are. He's here. He's 8-1, but he's a fabulous horse. And if he gets his track and gets his effort, I think he's worth that price. And my third horse is the 3, which is the horse in this race who I think can win, and I'm making a win bet. I think she's up. It's a tough race, but the 3, Amello, the race 2 back, she moved up to press 3 speeds. She chased a loose leader. She reeled in that rival. It was a huge effort. And, that was in a group 2, the King Edward. So she's got another race under her belt in the St. Leger. September, there was some time before the race 2 back. But I think this one doesn't need the lead. It's going to be comfortable in and among horses, covered up, as they say. And this one's a pretty good price in here at 10-1. So I've got it 8-2-3. The 3 being my value horse and the horse I want to bet tomorrow.
Very good.
Saturday.
Breeders' Cup Turf, race 8, race number 9 on the schedule on
that
Saturday
race
is the Classic. It's going to go off at about a little before 6:30 our time, 3:30 their time out on the Pacific Coast. You mentioned it earlier with the scratch of Sovereignty. David Aragona redid his morning line and wound up making Fierceness the 5-2 favorite. Co-choices underneath Forever Young and Sierra Leone at 7-2. Mind Frame at 6-1. Journalism 5-1. Antiquarian, who I think is interesting, at 10-1. But again, you can go out and find the redone morning line at various. Well, go to David Aragona's Twitter feed and you can see it right there as well. But the Breeders' Cup Classic, again, without Sovereignty, lost some of the luster, but boy, it's still a really good field and shapes up as a really fun race. $7 million up for grabs, a mile and a quarter the trip. Tom, your thoughts on the Classic?
No. I'm picking Forever Young. I want the 5. My numbers here are 5, 9, 8. I'm fighting Fierceness, which I have done all along. I'm fighting Sierra Leone, which I have done all along. Forever Young has really done almost everything they've asked of him, and he's pretty much always run better than odds in his United States effort. So I'm looking for another big effort from Forever Young. I'm going to be sad if the price is so short that I really don't want to bet him. He's now the second choice behind Fierceness. With the scratch of Sovereignty, and I was going to have Sovereignty second, I went to Journalism, who's 10-1. And as I said in the open, he hasn't passed Sovereignty, but now he doesn't have to. Sovereignty will not be there to deliver, to take the goods, if you will. And the question is, well, is he ready to deal with these older horses? I can't see anything that says that he's not flourishing the works and the way he has muscled up and matured physically. So I'm taking Journalism second. And really, I didn't really know what to do for a third pick. So I picked Mind Frame, who's the mystery horse everybody is waiting to run. And he's probably going to get the best opportunity to get the distance because there's a Del Mar, which is going to carry his speed. Both he and Guadabarrio were destroyed in their last effort. And so he's worked up to this race. And I think, it is Todd. He doesn't fool around. And here's another one, 14 furlongs in 14 days. So I think he'll be fit. And we'll see. If the good Fierceness shows up, he can win, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If the good upsetter Antiquarian shows up, he can win. So it's really a fascinating race.
Yeah,
But I got it 5-9-8.
Antiquarian is one I wanted to play around with, but I wound up 7, 9, 1, and 8. Originally, I had Sovereignty on top, so I moved these up now. I put Sierra Leone on top. As well, remember the winner of this race last year has run well this year. String of triple-digit buyers, Flavian Prod sticks on board. I just, won this race last year on this track. I think he's legit again this year. Second spot, going to take a look at Journalism. Again, I think Sovereignty was head and shoulders on the top of the 3-year-old class, but head and shoulders second was Journalism, and then Baeza was third, and I think it was a long ways back to the rest. But I think even the top 3 were separated a little bit. But Journalism, to me, is a solid runner. Ran a good second to Fierceness in the Pacific Classic last time when stepping up against Older. I have Fierceness down in the 3rd spot, and off that Pacific Classic win. I mean, Mike Rapoli is making a lot of noise about contrary thinking. Entered as a rabbit. I don't. Looking what this one did in the Pacific Classic, I would just go out there and not worry about the others. I think Fierceness is going to be absolutely legit. I have 4 picks for each race, and so when Sovereignty went out, I had to pull in a 4th pick, and I'm like you. Where do I? And I wound up on Mindframe, but I could have gone in any number of different directions there. But for me, in the Classic, 7, 9, 1, and 8. Race number 10, the Breeders' Cup Mile, Grade 1 event. They're going a mile on the turf in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I have a 2, 5, 7, and 11 notable speech. We wound up the Saratoga season, packed up all our equipment, came back down and started shooting in the studio. And then, 2 weeks after Saratoga, we were up at Woodbine for their big weekend, which included this race, the Woodbine Mile. Man, they look good. And I spoke with Charlie Appleby's assistant after the race, and their game plan was obviously win and you're in. They're going, but they went back to England and said they were coming back. That was the game plan. They followed that. But boy, he looked good as the 2 to 5 favorite in there. I could not get past him off of being there, seeing him live. So notable speech on top. Program trading though for Chad and Klarovich. 3rd start of the year, modest incremental improvement, start 1 to start 2. They were both second place finishes, but we see a couple of triple-digit buyers underneath. I think in the 3rd start back, it is not out of the question to see improvement into that area. Johans in the 3rd spot off a nice win last time in the stakes race out at Santa Anita. Again, some triple-digit buyers underneath for him as well. The number 11, Rhetorical. Again, it's another one of those where I might have moved up the Will Walden trainee off of a really solid record. But the outside post position at a mile scared me just a little bit, but clearly a player in here. For me in the Breeders' Cup Mile, 2, 5, 7, and 11. Tom?
I've got a 3, 4, 10. As I said at the top of the show, I'm really sticking with Euros on the turf. So my top pick is Solon, 3, 6 to 1 on the line. Now I'll just say this now. The 4, the Lion and Winner, exits a race where he finished behind Solon by a neck. They're a couple horses. He's Aidan O'Brien. I like them both. So the 3 and the 4, they almost look even to me. This horse was behind a wall of horses, angled out, and finished like a runaway train to take its last, the Group 1 Prix de Moulin in Longchamp. So I'm sticking with him. Oui. That's right. And, the Lion and Winner, O'Brien said, the mile has always been in the plan. I like that. He said his last was the best effort. Is really looking forward to getting him on fast ground, and says, as only an Irish trainer can say, well, he's rising in our opinion, right? Rising, okay. We like him a lot, is what we say. All right. So I'm taking 3 and 4 against the favorites, and my 3rd horse was Junko, the 10, and this one is finished behind Rhetorical and Program Training, but that to me looked like a prep. I don't know. He was way back. He broke outside. He'll be breaking outside again. But his Grade 2 win in the Celebration Mile is what caught my eye when I watched that. He was taken back, he was asked, and he just kept on like the freight train he can be. And so I'm going to take the €3, 3, 4, and 10.
Excellent. We move on now to race number 11 on the card on Saturday.
I'm
the
tired.
Breeders'
Are you
Cup.
tired?
The Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Yeah, wait until Saturday. Then Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, Grade 1 event, going a mile on the main track for this group. Tom, how'd you see the Dirt Mile?
I have a 2, 6, 10. I decided I'm going to stand against Nisos. I think he's vulnerable here. Now, that means he's going to win for fun. But I took goal-oriented. I mean, it's Bob Baffert. If he's decided this horse is a miler, I mean, if you look at goal-oriented's last 3 races, there's journalism, there's Baeza. I don't see journalism or Baeza, or at least I don't see journalism in this race. And, it's 3 Group 1s, Grade 1s. And so if Bob Baffert thinks he can run a mile, I'm going to stick with him. He's the 3rd choice on the line at 6-1. I think that's fair odds. I took Full Serrano, the 6 horse, as my 2nd choice. Horse for the course, horse for the distance, proven miler. His last race was a slow pace, going a mile and an eighth. Great Group 1. He lasts for 2nd. Sounds to me like a very good prep for the race they really want, his specialty, the mile. So here's a horse that probably, he'd been long on turf, but he hadn't run long on dirt. And so now he cuts back to what I think is his best distance. And my 3rd choice in here is the 10. When I get to him, White Barrio. I say, because I had every intention of putting him on top. I wanted White Barrio because I thought he was sitting on a race where he had 2 riders for about 100 yards, right? And I really thought that the cutback was really going to help him. But he's just hasn't run enough races well enough at this class, this Group 1 level, Grade 1 level, for me to put him on top. But I will not be surprised if he runs better than his 8-1 odds. So I've got it 2, 6, and 10.
I'm 8, 3, 2, and 6. I'm going to really swing here. I've been a fan of Chancellor McPatrick. Got to know owner Sean Flanagan over the past couple of years. Chad Brown trainee. That things are going to have to break his way. And the winner of this race, I think, is going to have to jump up and run one of their better races. And that could be goal-oriented. That could be Nisos, Mystic Dan even, White Barrio. But I think there's going to be some pace to shoot at. And that's what Chancellor McPatrick does. Chases down fast paces if he runs his best race. That's what he did early in the career. Hasn't quite lived up to that as a 3-year-old, but I will say that Curlin, boy, his comeback in the stretch when he got past the last 3 strides and came back, that seemed to indicate he's still there. There's still some talent there. I think the mile is going to hit him square in the forehead. And again, I think there'll be some pace for him to maybe take a little pop at late. So at a price, I'm going to take a shot with Chancellor McPatrick. Niso's clearly the one to beat, as I say. If this horse gets back and runs the best effort, it's his to lose. Comes in with a nice workout, goal-oriented, like Nisos, a Bob Baffert trainee that has the potential to run very well. Full Serrano, I think, is also an interesting player, and how can you deny? He won the race last year, so I would think that would be an attractive thing to hang your hat on here at potentially a little bit of value, but I'm going for more value in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I have it 8, 3, 2, and 6. And finally, we wrap up the Breeders' Cup action on Saturday and for the weekend. Race number 12 at Del Mar on Saturday. Breeders' Cup, Filly and Mayer Turf. They will go a mile and 3/8 on the grass I have it 13, 6, 4, and 7. I'm a fan of the Cherie DeVoe runner. She feels pretty. Again, we were up at Woodbine. Well, she was at Woodbine actually before we were up there back in the middle of August with her victory in the EP Taylor. We were up on the next big weekend they had up there. But she ran very well in that race at Woodbine, has been off since. But it's hard to look at the record and fault. 12 starts, 8 wins, couple of seconds, couple of thirds. The outside post position is no bonus, but they're going 3 turns here, so there's plenty of time to find position and make a play. But I don't love the post position. If you're with me and you want to put a real negative check mark on She Feels Pretty and look for alternatives, Diamond Rain, I think, for Charlie Appleby coming out of the close-up second. Right behind She Feels Pretty in the EP Taylor is very dangerous. Village Voice came over from Europe and put in a nice win at Belmont at Aqueduct in the Whale last time. So that one also seems playable. And Be Your Best for Safi Joseph, I think, is also a horse that at the very least gets up and in the mix at potentially a big price, certainly on the morning line with Irad on board. So for me, in the 12th at Del Mar, wrapping up Breeders' Cup action, Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, 13, 6, 4, and 7.
I have it 14, 9, and 6. The 14 is See the Fire.
Keeping your theme going.
Yes. Euros and outside posts.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't matter. In this race, it's less relevant. I watched several of See the Fire's races. The Prince of Wales was a solid effort against males. The grade 1 Juddmonte 2-back was on a good to firm ground, and that was a decent effort also against males. And then she comes back and she wins the Prix de l'Opera at Longchamp. And I mean, it's a winning effort, second by a neck. Sean Murphy knows her very well. I think 5-1 is a square price. One of the interesting things, about the fact that there aren't that many folks who really do the work to look at all the races of the Euros. So you can she's a 4th choice. I think easily you could see her at 12 or 14-1 just because she's a Euro that they don't know, that the overall betting public doesn't get or doesn't know. Now, there's an awful lot of good information with the podcasts and the other video shows that people watch, where you can get a better handle on the Euros. Maybe not how you or I see them, but that's part of your information gathering. But I'm very much impressed with the races. I like the fact that Sean Murphy made the trip and stays with her, and we'll see what happens. My second choice is the 9. Give me a minute to find the PPs. That's Cinderella's Dream. That's the other Appleby, I think, or no, that's another Appleby. And this one, I think, has run extremely well. And I don't think it's going to be a real problem making the move to this distance. There's no shortage of distance in the pedigree. You're getting William Buick 9-2 on the morning line. I think that's fair as well for the Godolphin connections. And the 6, you mentioned your second choice, I think it is, Diamond Rain. Was off slow, last near the rear, moved up inside, angled out when asked, and finished full of run in the EP Taylor. You were there for that, right?
No, we weren't there.
You weren't
Like
there
I
for
said, we were there for the
Yeah.
next big weekend.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I got 2 Applebys here. 14, 9, 6 to finish off the marathon day on Breeders' Cup Day.
And again, the classical golf at about 6:30, but there's 3 Breeders' Cup races after that. You can.
How do you feel about that? I mean,
I mean, on the West
it's
Coast, I
interesting.
think I get it, given that we're in college football season. I mean,
Okay.
there's a whole bunch of factors that
Yeah.
go into it. So I kind of
You know,
understand it.
the only thing I feel is that, and I think you've heard me say this for the longest time, we hype this as our Super Bowl and as our World Series. And if the Classic is supposed to be the ultimate, then it really should climax today, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. That in that context.
Well, like
And
I
then-
said, I think they're working with TV
Yeah,
too to
no,
try
I
to get
get
it as
that.
wide an audience. But yeah, I understand the point certainly. And if you're on track, I think it probably kind of like the last three.
Yeah.
You know, you get the Classic, and
Yeah.
then it's like,
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Sometimes here at Saratoga, we'll run that feature, and then the 6:30 and 7 o'clock races will be less than stellar in terms of class, and it's like playing in an empty auditorium.
but it is 2 great days of racing.
Absolutely.
And there are plenty as we've looked at them. There are a couple where we agreed. There were a bunch where we completely disagreed. And I
Absolutely.
think that's summing up the 2 days. I think
Sure.
there'll be some real opportunities to make some money if you have some clever opinions. I think you only need 1 or 2 of them on the day, and you can walk away very happy.
You know, when I was coaching basketball, I knew that whatever I did, there were a few people up there who were saying, you know, he's a jackass. And we've just shared all sorts of contrary and similar information. And there's a few people going out there go, what? Anyhow,
Which makes the game.
makes
It's all
the
about
game.
opinions.
That's
And
right. That's absolutely
we're
right.
going to be
And bet your opinion.
Yeah.
And don't ever let us talk you off one of your horses.
hopefully we
Never.
gave some opinions though to help people out.
Absolutely.
And we are happy if we have done that. I'm certainly going to be happy if I cash a few tickets on Friday and Saturday. That's the game plan. It's always the
Oh, you
biggest day
bet?
of the year. Slightly on
You
Breeders' Cup Day, slightly, yeah.
Slightly, yeah.
Yeah. No, but you did. It's one of those days. Take the rubber band off the bankroll. It's that day of the year, and you know you can go maybe a little bit deeper in like an exacta box than you normally
Yeah.
would, because you look up at the board and you're going to see some odds that are going to make it all very attractive.
I'm going to say one last thing. Now, we have worked, you know, folks, we've worked hard diligently on this. And so we have opinions, yeah, strong, but the craziness of this game is we don't know which opinion in which race is going to be right. And so there's a part of me that on days like today, when I do all the work, or this week when I do all the work, because we don't know, you almost got to have something in all of them, so that if you're right in a race you really didn't like and he pays $30, you can't go, oh, I liked him. So I'm going to be in, not all in, but I'm going to be in.
Well, I mean, I have stolen your lap. The 2x4 horse. You don't want to be looking up and have your 2x4 horse win a race when you're sitting on the
Thank you so
sidelines.
much. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
All right, going to wrap it up for this edition of the annual Capital OTB Breeders' Cup Seminar. Seth Merrow, Tom Amello, we're wishing you a lot of luck and have a great weekend. We'll see you again.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.